Hello, and welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're embarking on a truly expansive journey, really trying to understand China in the era of Xi Jinping.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a pretty robust stack of fascinating sources here, everything from academic articles to, deep research. And together, they paint this complex, really dynamic picture of a nation undergoing immense transformation, both inside and, well, on the global stage.
Yeah, it's a lot of material.
Our mission, as always, is to pull out the most crucial nuggets for you, give you that shortcut to being truly well-informed, and maybe uncover some surprising facts and insights along the way.
Absolutely. And the material you've gathered gives us a wealth of perspectives. It really touches on everything from the, let's say, intricate nuances of China's internal political structures,
Right.
to its rapidly evolving role in the global economy and how it engages with international norms. It's such a pivotal moment in history.
It really is.
So it's absolutely crucial to understand not just what is happening, but why it matters so profoundly for China itself and, well, for the rest of the world, too.
Okay, so buckle up because we're about to delve deep. Our exploration today will kick off by looking inwards at the immense domestic pressures China faces, the economic tightrope act and its relentless pursuit of stability.
That why-win concept.
Exactly. Then we'll peel back the layers of that unique, often kind of opaque relationship between the Communist Party and the state machinery.
Yeah, that's key.
And finally, we'll zoom out to the international arena. We'll try to dissect China's grand strategy, how it's maybe reshaping global norms, and that powerful, often double-edged sword of economic interdependence. So by the end, you're going to have, hopefully, a genuinely holistic view with enough detail to really grasp the monumental dynamics at play here.
Sounds good.
So let's start right at the very top then with Xi Jinping himself. Our sources suggest he's emerged as a leader with a level of consolidated power really unseen in his recent predecessors.
That seems fair to say.
He took the helm back in 2012. And China then was already a vastly different place than it had been even a decade before, right? It had surpassed Japan as the world's second largest economy by 2010.
Yeah, the context is important.
So this was a nation clearly on the rise. And Xi stepped right into that powerful current.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is the deliberate, almost surgical institutionalization of power around Xi. A critical component of this is that 3-in-1 system.
Ah, yes. Explain that for us.
Well, it's where the general secretary of the party also concurrently serves as the head of state, that's the president, and the commander-in-chief of the military, the CMC chairman.
Okay.
Now, this wasn't entirely new, but it was significantly consolidated and, reinforced under Xi, particularly after his predecessor, Hu Jintao, did that one-step power transition in 2012.
Handing everything over at once.
Exactly, handing all three purses to Xi from day one. And that gave Xi a formidable, unified platform right from the start of his leadership, a very strong position.
And from what our sources reveal, he certainly didn't waste any time in, well, leveraging that platform to the fullest. The third plenum in November 2013, that was a pivotal moment, wasn't it? A real statement of intent.
Absolutely a big signal.
It wasn't just about announcing economic policy preferences, though. Xi also moved to establish two incredibly powerful, new high-level policy coordination institutions.
Right, the Reform Group and the Security Commission.
Yes, one dedicated to economic reform and a brand new National Security Commission. And crucially, he heads both of these bodies himself, which gives him direct, pretty much unparalleled control over critical domains of the military, domestic security, propaganda, foreign policy, all of it.
And this new National Security Commission is particularly noteworthy for your understanding. It's often described as being, well, loosely based on the American model,
Right.
but with a crucial difference. It holds dual duties over both domestic security and foreign policy.
Ah, interesting. So internal and external combined.
Precisely. Before its creation, these immense responsibilities were kind of scattered across multiple, often competing, leading groups and military commissions.
Which sounds inefficient.
It could be. That fragmentation sometimes led to inefficiencies, even sort of internal conflicts. So Xi's move centralizes that authority significantly. It makes for a much more streamlined and ultimately more powerful decision-making apparatus right under his direct command.
Now, this next point truly jumped out at me from our sources, and I think it will for you, too.
Yeah.
Xi's unprecedented anti-corruption campaign.
Oh, yeah. That was massive.
Led by Wang Qishan, this initiative has just been relentless, bringing down what they call tigers.
Right, the high-level officials.
meaning officials at vice ministerial level or above.
Mm-hmm.
People like Zhu Yongkang and Xu Kaihu, who were previously considered, well, untouchable,
Right.
beyond reproach.
Completely untouchable. Yeah.
The sheer scale and, frankly, the ruthlessness of this campaign make you wonder about the underlying motivations. What our sources suggest is that this wasn't just about cleaning house, so to speak. It was also a powerful tool for Xi to fundamentally cement his control and legitimacy.
Consolidating power.
Exactly. Overcoming deeply entrenched interest groups and ensuring loyalty right up to the highest echelons of power. It's seen as a clear marker of his more assertive, maybe even authoritarian leadership style.
No doubt about that.
Okay, so we've just delved into how Xi Jinping has dramatically consolidated power at the very top. But, consolidating authority is one thing. Effectively governing a nation of 1.4 billion people, day in and day out, that's another challenge entirely.
A huge challenge.
Which leads us directly to our next crucial question. How exactly does the Communist Party exert its control over the vast machinery of the Chinese state? Our sources describe it as, well, complex, often blurred, but ultimately an utterly dominant relationship.
Yeah, dominant is the word. To help visualize this, a useful analogy that comes up in the sources is to think of the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, as the property owner,
All right.
and the state council system as the property manager.
I like that analogy.
The party holds all the key decision-making powers. It defines the overall direction, the strategy, while the state council is responsible for the day-to-day implementation, the administration.
Got it.
And this deep, pervasive party domination is facilitated by powerful sort of overarching institutions, like the nomenclatura system, which basically means the party directly controls all major personnel appointments. Senior government officials, university presidents, you name it, across the entire state bureaucracy.
Wow, okay.
And additionally, there are the Strengthened Central Leading Small Groups, or CLSGs.
Right, you mentioned those.
These are essentially ad hoc interagency party committees, and they can bypass traditional government structures, giving the party direct, highly centralized control over critical policy areas. It ensures the party line is followed.
But even with such centralized control, it's not always a perfectly smooth operation, is it?
No, definitely not.
Our sources highlight this persistent issue called vertical fragmentation, sometimes referred to as infighting or will-a-do.
Will-a-do.
Can you explain that? It sounds like internal friction.
It is. It happens when heads of the state bureaucracy at, say, a lower level might be reluctant to take direct orders from the party heads at the same local level.
Why would they do that?
Because those state bureaucrats are actually appointed and overseen by higher-level party organizations, not their local party counterpart.
Ah, so their loyalty is upwards, not sideways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It creates this really fascinating tension and can seriously jeopardize efficiency, especially in a crisis situation.
Like the Sichuan earthquake example.
Precisely. Think about the 2008 Sichuan earthquake. Premier Wen Jiabao, who was leading the state's response, reportedly struggled to mobilize military support quickly.
Why?
Because that ultimate authority over the military resided with the party head, Hu Jintao at the time, not with the state council he led. It's a potent example of where these party-state lines can create real friction on the ground.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this specific dynamic truly highlights what our sources call the rigid flexibility of China's political system.
Rigid flexibility. Sounds like a contradiction.
It kind of is. The overall structure, meaning the party's ultimate dominance, remains rigidly intact. But its internal content and function are continually changing, adapting to rationalize this complex, sometimes contradictory relationship between party and state.
So it bends but doesn't break.
Something like that. While the idea of a full separation of party and state, which was actually openly discussed back in the 1980s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's no longer on the agenda. Instead, the party actively works to institutionalize its domination while, strategically allowing more space for the state in daily administrative affairs. It's a continuous, evolving adjustment,
Okay.
all designed to maintain ultimate party control without excessively hindering the necessary day-to-day governance of such a vast and complex nation.
So for you listening, it's really about understanding that governance in China isn't some simple, clear-cut, top-down structure.
Not at all.
It's much more of a dynamic, evolving interplay. A system constantly being engineered and re-engineered, really, to maintain the Communist Party's iron grip, while simultaneously striving for a level of efficiency needed to manage a country of that scale and ambition.
Well put.
Now, China's rapid rise has undeniably created enormous internal stresses. The economy, I mean, it's undeniably the world's second largest, but it's now facing some significant structural challenges.
Big ones.
And our sources suggest these threaten its long-term sustainability and perhaps even the very social stability the party cherishes so much.
Yeah, several critical points stand out here from the readings. China's past growth model, the one heavily driven by that almost unlimited supply of cheap rural labor and massive state-directed investment, well, it's fundamentally reached its limits.
Okay, how so?
We're now seeing what economists call the Lewis turning point.
The Lewis turning point.
Yeah, it's that crucial moment in a developing economy when the vast surplus of cheap rural labor, the stuff that once fueled rapid industrialization, effectively runs out.
So wages go up.
Exactly. For China, it means the era of endless low-wage factory workers is diminishing, leading directly to rising labor costs. This fundamentally challenges their old export-driven growth model and, their manufacturing competitiveness.
Makes sense.
And moreover, those past investment excesses created significant financial fragility and debt. A stark example is the high-speed rail system's massive debt burden. That older model just isn't sustainable for continued high growth without major reform.
Right. And our sources also point to a really critical concept here. Reform stagnation.
That's important.
Can you elaborate? It sounds like getting stuck.
It is, kind of. Imagine a highly successful company that becomes so comfortable with its past achievements and current stability that it just loses its internal drive to innovate or undertake difficult but necessary reforms.
Complacency sets in.
Sort of. That's
Yeah.
what some argue happened with the Communist Party after, say, 1995. The really profound insight here is that the party itself, having delivered immense prosperity and lifted millions out of poverty, became its own biggest vested interest.
The system protecting itself.
Precisely. It grew comfortable with a system that had stabilized and was now primarily focused on, reproducing itself, rather than being driven by the same internal sense of crisis and urgency that spurred earlier, more radical reforms. So for you, this implies that China's path forward might be constrained by its own past successes and the inherent resistance to change within the system.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah. And in response to these escalating internal pressures, the economic slowdown, rising inequality, potential social unrest, the government is trying this dual approach to maintain social stability. That why-when we mentioned.
Right, the carrot and the stick, maybe?
You could see it that way. On one hand, there's the extensive domestic security apparatus. Our sources indicate China actually spends more on domestic security than on national defense.
Wow. That's quite a statistic.
It is. It's a stark indicator of how deeply concerned the leadership is about internal order. This involves everything from advanced surveillance to a very robust police presence.
Okay, so that's the stick. What's the carrot?
On the other hand, they've also been building a more service-oriented government, abolishing long-standing agricultural taxes, for instance, significantly expanding rural health care and pensions.
Providing benefits.
Exactly. Like the new rural cooperative medical system, that alone had 830 million participants by 2010. It demonstrates a genuine effort to provide a social safety net and address citizen grievances to try and keep people reasonably content.
So as the party navigates these huge internal challenges, the economic tightrope walk, the constant quest for stability, our sources reveal this potent tool it wields: nationalism.
A very powerful tool.
This isn't just some abstract concept, right? It's actively cultivated, particularly under Xi Jinping, with his powerful China Dream and national rejuvenation narrative. It's used as a force to bind the nation and bolster party legitimacy.
Definitely.
And this narrative often includes emphasizing this century of humiliation,
The historical narrative.
that period of foreign dominance and exploitation, to foster a sense of national grievance, but also national pride. For you listening, understanding how deeply this sentiment runs is really key.
Absolutely key.
We see it reflected in public opinion polls, which show surprisingly strong support for military responses to territorial disputes. It's a powerful unifying force, but potentially volatile too, I imagine.
Very much so. It's something they have to manage carefully.
Okay, let's pivot now. From China's internal dynamics to its increasingly assertive role on the global stage.
Right, the external dimension.
There's apparently a significant ongoing debate within China itself
Right.
about whether it needs a clearer, more defined grand strategy to guide its rising international standing.
Yeah, that debate is definitely happening. Although what's interesting is that many Western observers believe China already has a grand strategy. even if it's maybe implicit or just continuously evolving.
Okay, so what did it look like historically?
Well, we can trace distinct approaches. Mao Zedong, for instance, had a very clear leaning to one side strategy, aligning firmly with the Soviet Union during the early Cold War.
Right.
Deng Xiaoping, however, adopted what's best described as radical pragmatism, famously summarized as crossing the river by feeling the stones.
Keep a low profile, focus on development.
Exactly. It meant downplaying ideology significantly in favor of national interest, prioritizing economic reform and development, often, keeping a low profile on the international stage.
And now under Xi, it feels different.
It does. There's that strong emphasis on the China dream, which involves this grand vision of national rejuvenation and explicitly appeals to those powerful nationalist values we just talked about.
So definitely not keeping a low profile anymore.
No, it clearly suggests a significant move away from Deng's approach, reflecting China's greater power and ambition. Now, scholars debate the exact goal. Some, like Alistair Ian Johnston or Avery Goldstein, argue China's overarching goal is to achieve a multipolar world, one less dominated by a single superpower. Others, like Aaron Friedberg, suggest a more specific aim. Maybe a Sino-centric East Asia where China's influence is paramount?
So regional dominance is a step.
Perhaps. But for you, it's key to remember that appealing to nationalism, while powerful, can be that double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, it can generate immense public support, but it can also turn against leaders if they're perceived as not vigorously safeguarding national interests or not asserting China's rightful place on the global stage strongly enough. It creates expectations.
Right. It raises the stakes for the leadership, too.
Exactly. Which then raises this important question. Is China seeking to fundamentally overthrow existing global norms and institutions?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is, and our sources suggest it's far more nuanced than a simple rejection. China has, in fact, largely joined and complied with the vast majority of international regimes.
Like the WTO.
Yeah, everything from the WTO to various human rights conventions. Their approach often seems to be influencing their evolution from within, subtly shaping interpretations and applications rather than outright rejecting them.
So not tearing down the house, but maybe renovating the rooms to suit them better.
That's a decent analogy. Instead of outright rejection, China's approach is more about contesting norms.
Okay, give an example.
Take human rights. They practice what some scholars call hypocritical compliance. They formally adhere to international human rights conventions, they sign them, but then systematically violate certain civil and political rights at home, like freedom of speech or assembly.
So saying one thing, doing another.
To some extent. In trade, they've shown what's called emerging compliance with WTO obligations, generally abiding by decisions and rules, but also engaging in practices like intellectual property issues that raise concerns elsewhere.
Right.
And furthermore, our sources show China has also actively created supplementary institutions, things like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB.
Right, the AIIB.
And the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO. These often operate outside traditional Western-dominated frameworks, sometimes excluding Western powers altogether.
Creating their own clubs.
Effectively, yeah. Enhancing China's own influence and offering alternative channels for shaping the international order. It's a pretty sophisticated play, operating both within and, well, alongside the established system.
Okay, now let's try and connect all this to a powerful concept. Economic interdependence. Specifically through the lens of the Kantian peace thesis.
Ah, Kant, yes.
This theory, going back to the Enlightenment philosopher Immanuel Kant, fundamentally argues that when nations become deeply intertwined through trade and economic exchange, well, the immense costs of conflict become so prohibitive that they're just far less likely to wage war against each other.
Too much to lose.
Exactly. It's a very pragmatic argument for peace, driven by mutual self-interest.
And it's a powerful argument, absolutely. It feels highly relevant to the U.S.-China relationship, doesn't it?
It seems like it should be.
Our sources highlight China's deep dependence on exports to power its economy, foreign investment to drive innovation, critical resource imports to sustain its massive industrial base.
Right.
And this is balanced, on the other side, by U.S. dependence on Chinese investments and China's vital role in global manufacturing supply chains.
We definitely saw that during the pandemic.
Indeed. This creates what international relations scholars term complex interdependence. The idea is that this mutual reliance, this intricate web of economic ties, should theoretically reduce the likelihood of overt conflict between, say, the U.S. and China. because the economic fallout for both sides would just be catastrophic.
Should. But does it? Our sources also present some compelling challenges to this thesis, suggesting it's not exactly a silver bullet for peace.
No, it's definitely not that simple. Historical legacies, for instance, play a huge and often underappreciated role, especially in East Asia.
The century of humiliation again.
That's part of it. China's deep-seated desire to end what it perceives as that century of humiliation profoundly influences its approach to neighbors, particularly Japan. We see this play out in escalating maritime claims and disputes in both the East and South China Seas. And these are often fueled by those historical grievances and strong nationalistic sentiments, sometimes seeming to override purely economic calculations.
So history and emotion trumping economics sometimes?
It can seem that way. And while nuclear weapons certainly deter a full-scale direct conflict between major powers like the U.S. and China,
Thankfully.
don't mistake that for an era of perfect peace. What our sources clearly illuminate is the enduring power and prevalence of coercive diplomacy.
Coercive diplomacy. What does that look like?
This isn't just theory, it's the constant palpable tension you see, moving ships around in contested waters, threatening economic boycotts, testing weapon systems in menacing ways to send clear signals. It's pressure below the threshold of war.
Got it. Gray zone tactics.
Exactly. Also, while the institutional framework, the WTO, the IMF is robust, and China is generally committed to its rules, there's still that open question of whether China will ultimately seek fundamental challenges to these global institutions or just continue to try and modify them from within. It's a dynamic tension, a constant push and pull.
And we've certainly seen China's more, let's say, over-assertive policies manifest in concrete ways in those maritime disputes you mentioned.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the 9-dash-line map, which unilaterally claims vast swaths of the South China Sea.
Hugely controversial.
Or aggressive oil drilling near Vietnam. Or those massive, ecologically damaging land reclamation projects, the Spratly Islands, tuning reefs into artificial islands capable of hosting military facilities.
Island building.
Yet these actions haven't only alienated many of its neighbors, but they've also contributed significantly to the U.S. pivot, or rebalance, to Asia.
Which China sees as.
Which China, in turn, interprets as an explicit containment strategy. So it creates this cycle.
A security dilemma, essentially.
Right. And what's particularly striking for your understanding is that public opinion polls within China, as we touched on, even show strong support for using military force in these territorial disputes, especially over the Diaoyu and Taku Islands with Japan.
That nationalism runs deep.
It really underscores that nationalism isn't just some top-down tool. It resonates deeply with the populace and can constrain leaders, too.
Absolutely. So this highlights the incredibly complex interplay at work. Powerful economic ties, which theoretically push for peace, are constantly in tension with those deeply rooted historical grievances, potent nationalistic sentiment, and regional power dynamics that frequently create flashpoints. It is. The bilateral relationship between the U.S. and China, while undeniably deeply intertwined economically, hasn't yet reached that level of, say, complex interdependence where both truly trust the other's long-range intentions. It remains a very delicate balance, navigating a landscape fraught with both huge opportunity and significant risk.
So as you can tell from all this, China under Xi Jinping is really a study in controlled dynamism. You've got this powerful leader consolidating authority, a party-state system constantly adapting its rigid flexibility, as you called it, a society grappling with monumental economic shifts and rising nationalism, and an international player asserting its interests while navigating an incredibly complex global order.
Yeah, it's a nation balancing immense internal pressures with growing external ambition.
That sums it up well.
Precisely. And the sources really reveal a China that seeks to manage its domestic contradictions through the sophisticated blend of strong central party control, ongoing economic reform, though maybe with limitations, as we discussed.
Like the stagnation issue.
And a very careful cultivation of national sentiment. All of this happening while simultaneously pushing for greater influence in international affairs, often by contesting norms from within or building those supplementary institutions. So for you, the key takeaway is that China's trajectory isn't simple, it's not linear, it's certainly not easily predictable.
No easy answers.
No, it's a constant tightrope walk, constantly adjusting between maintaining internal stability and projecting external assertion.
Okay, so here's a final provocative thought for you to consider as you reflect on this deep dive. If, as our sources suggest, the very economic success that enabled China's meteoric rise has also inadvertently created these deep-seated vested interests within the Communist Party.
The system reproducing itself.
Right, leading to a system perhaps primarily focused on reproducing itself rather than truly transforming. How much genuine transformative reform can actually occur down the line, especially as the economy inevitably slows, environmental challenges intensify, and maybe domestic unhappiness potentially grows.
That's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. What does that mean for China's path forward, both internally, as it seeks stability, and globally, as it continues to assert itself on the world stage? Something to chew on.
Definitely food for thought.
Well, we hope this deep dive has given you a richer, more nuanced, and truly well-informed understanding of China today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.